Zimbabwe's mostly like my generation, we were not taught that we were different from anybody, or that we weren't really like born with that, like you black, you black, you black. We were African. We know that we were African and we are comfortable and very always comfortable. But we were taught that, we just very compete. We must just compete. So when we compete, the education then, they say they've got this saying, right? Like education makes you unfit, for slavery. So education makes you unfit for a lot of things, So if they are masters are educated, they will chill with masters. So masters, then they don't have a race. If royalty have got no race. Every tribe and stuff have got its own class of royalty. So we must never excuse self-education, self-drive, having that vision to want to be great for ourselves and for our people, for whatever, like, oh, I don't have this because no. We can all self-drive ourselves. It's from within to drive yourself to great. Wishing you out doing good. It's winter, it's getting cold, it's getting crazy. But we keep the faith strong. Everybody out there, off the internet, I barely speak to a lot of people. I don't. Off YouTube, these engagements, I find a couple of people interesting, educational. The follow-ups are nice. The likes of Zania Shabari with some of those questions. Now we're coming to articulate on Zimbabwe education, of which that is posed to me by Ron M. At Ron M. That's on YouTube. So Zimbabwe education, how is it so different, or why is it different to other African educational systems? Some may ask. Zimbabwe educational systems were technically merged with those of UK, Australia, those upper countries. So the education was rich in looking at our late president, the father of Zimbabwe, Mugabe, his education drive. It's not just we had these standards, but these standards had to be implemented on a major scale. Kids had to understand what it is that they were learning. Like English, for example. English, everybody speak it, but sometimes they can't write it. It doesn't make to certain people like what they're actually saying. So how do you go about breaking apart English, as a syllabus? So that's a whole different topic, of which English language is not as easy, which I would understand why. So those are things, or some of the things that you have to learn in Zimbabwean education to break things apart, like how certain words mean not just one thing. They can mean a lot of other things. A couple of factors that helps you understand work with the mind. So the education systems were created to suit our circumstances. So kids just with parents just who have won independence, we were of course disadvantaged a lot, but the main idea was to just create the standards that the education structure itself with time, it will help the kids grow to become something, even though then the systems were not kind of favored for the majority of the African child. Skills structured in education, so we as skills structured education, theory, practicals. So what you're being taught in school on a theory basis, you also take that on a practical basis to understand more on in depth of what they're trying to say actually. So the smoking, the drinking, the partying, that was a no-no. We were not allowed to smoke, drink, party as kids in school, whether you were on campus, off campus, that was not allowed. In Zim we had quiz, mind knowledge games, and a lot of just awakening your mind to a whole different level. So I thought, let me start off from there. So they killed a slave, then they birthed a master. What am I saying? I have a song called Colonized by a Mastermind, so I was born a master. So you see, the type of breed that colonized us is one of those major master thinkers in this world, on this earth. So the type of breed that was colonized, our grandfathers, our greats, right? They had a certain knowledge structure which allowed for them to even be under such a colonial state. So it means education was to and from, even though the structures were not the same. So here we are now. We are born with a certain understanding of our past, of which that's our ancestral knowledge, the wisdom, the spiritual, but we're also born with that master mentality, that deeper understanding of things, because we lived, and most of our people, till this day, they live with the European nation, we're family, right? So at the end of the day, the knowledge just became richer and richer. It didn't stop, I'm not going to know exactly what's happening with this generation. Nevertheless, the structures were set. So, it was very compulsory for kids to be educated or to attend school. There's no kid who would not go to school. The levels of education, they were same on all platforms. So whether you were in the ghetto, whether you were in town, whether you were on a private school sector, the type of knowledge and education you were learning was the same, because then when you go to examinations and stuff, there it governs you on certain factors of what you all should know. So then Zimbabweans were all brought up with the same mind structure, mind factor. They're all very competitive, be it you're white, you're black, they're all very competitive, and this type of competitiveness goes also when you look at why we would do things like quiz, you're not scared to debate, see who's better, not better as in now I think I'm better than everybody, but better as in trying to get the best of who has what skill, and then what do we do with those skills. So Zimbabwe is very good at identifying, or was very good at identifying those skills. Whether they use those skills to their advantage, that's a whole different topic, Competitive, hectic teachers could discipline us, act on behalf of our parents. Our teachers were tough. They were allowed to talk to us in a way that they will reach us, educate us in a way that, because our teachers were just like our fathers, and our mothers. So they would guide us, our grandmothers, our grandfathers. They would guide us and they would show us the way. So it was very important for them to be that figure, to be that role. And also our teachers were of high principle, high caliber. I can never, ever, ever say there's a time when I saw one of my teachers, being in a misconduct way or being anything other than just being a teacher. We have never seen these people even drinking and stuff like that, even smoking for that matter. The 90's generation was a bit different in Zim, school was very strict. I remember growing up, So in terms of just the syllabus of what made the mind so articulate, or us being a bit more adventurous or go-getting, which sometimes then is miscalculated as being a threat, but it's just the mind structure of majority of the Zimbabweans who were just born right after colonization, So mathematics plays an important factor, mathematics. We didn't just learn maths, they had to practically teach us maths, how do you understand this and that? How do you vibe with that? So it was a matter of 1 plus 1 is equals to 2. Okay, then you say, okay, but why is it 2? So they will try to explain that 1 plus 1, but even if you look at it, 1 plus 1 actually is not equals to 2. It can be a lot of factors. So it all depends on how far you're going with the maths. So Zimbabweans were taught to think, okay, this is what is being said, but what can be out of the box or the picture to further understand the structure. So that's why they will have like then applied maths, of which you take this maths and then you apply it into something. Some applied, they create code, some applied, they create engineering, this and that. Some apply maths, they create businesses. So maths is very important because then maths, and maths is calculated and done in different ways. So once they teach maths, it's about opening your mind to doing further calculations of your own, then to get further in life. We had geography, understanding things like the earth, the rocks, what type of rock is that, and that, and that, and that. So it's very important. I remember last when I was in Zim, my niece was actually asking me a question regarding a certain stone. Like, where is it found in Zim? Like, what's the name of that stone? So Zim, we've got a lot of Zim geography education. They would want the children to know more about Zimbabwe, its riches, to be self-sustainable and self-dependent, to always understand the soil, the minerals that they're working on, that they're dealing with, all that. That's part of just that geography, the sciences, back in the day there was no computer, so we didn't have computer sciences. But at some point they adapted that, but we had like natural sciences, we had scientific sciences, whereby you deal with different science, there was just no computers, but science was science, trying to figure out what is that. But in primary school, it wasn't really that deep, so I can't really say like they really took us on that. They'll just give you gestures of science, to open your mind, because science is about opening your mind to a whole different, world of then using maths, applied maths, to think scientifically, to create that and that and that, then bring different solutions in a sense. Biology, living things, the animals, understanding a little bit and in depth of what is that all about, so that's a bit of biology. Then we had English, English, we had writing English, we had speaking English, of which you had to put the two together of what you're saying. You had to learn, of course, different types of how you say things and how you pronounce things, how you structure the whole English language in a sense. It's in depth, we speak it to just a mile point, we're not going to speak it like how the British will, or try to go deeper into it, because we are Shona people, first and foremost, or Indebele people, so at the end of the day, it's first we have got those structures, then we were made to understand English on a whole different level. So when we understood English and then we apply it and then you use it, like for example the way I'm speaking, or when I use English when I'm writing like my music, or when I'm using English when I'm dealing with the world, you apply English in a way that then it drives you. So then people say, it's not important, English is not important. Of course, it's not important when you don't have to speak to people, don't have to speak English. But if you have to deal with the entire world, it's just easier to speak in English. So we also had to learn that, because that's how you could then deal with the world correctly. Shona was very important, still is, always is, for a Zimbabwean person to move further in life, because that's the one thing that then binds Zimbabwean education to be one. Because without having the need to learn Shona, which is the mother tongue of the country, people will claim and be Zimbabwean unnecessarily, So on that regard, the system was very good to then put Shona as one of those languages that is to bind you your entire life as a Zimbabwean. So be it you white Zimbabwean, you Indian Zimbabwean, you black Zimbabwean, you will all speak Shona, you will all understand each other on fundamentals and all that, so there's no problem. Hence why they would not need to have like different races. Like still this day in Zim, I've never seen, they don't have somewhere where they say, what race are you? Are you black or white, Liberty Bwanali? They just want your name and your surname. With that, they have got in the system that. So citizenship in Zim is a bit different to the other places, because there we don't see each other in that racialness of things. Even though there was chaos with the land reform and stuff, till this day, it's not like you are black, I'm white type situation between Zimbabweans and generally Europeans or people of a different skin tone. We don't really look at that. It's beyond that. So Shona then bonds us as Zimbabweans. Hoodwork was important. Already at the age of 3, you're already in a hoodwork class, learning how to cut hood, how to make a table, or how to attempt to make anything with hood. So that was something that they put in us when we were just little kids. We had choir. So you would choose what other extra class you take. Me, I had choir and I had sports. So sports, I had running. So I was representing my school Kureza every year. I was compulsory. I was running for the school, and I was also singing in choir, but I always run away. Then my sister Melody would say every year, but I was not really like mandated to be in choir mostly. I was mostly mandated to be in sports. Yeah, because I was part of the relay team for my school, and I was just, running for my school, so that was quite good, man. So choir was one of those things, sports, running, cricket. I played cricket when I went to Ikra. I played some cricket there. Some soccer, I can say. I played back and forth primary school and Ikra. And from there, that's an Islamic school, yes, but then the kids would learn the syllabuses of the Zimsek during the day. Then at night, it would be Islamic classes and stuff. So brought up under very strict conditions, of which there you had to discipline again more religiously and just academically. So you had to put the balance, percussion band. That's also something that was in the primary school structure. So the primary school structure, Zimbabwe, is what really builds the Zimbabwean kid. Because without the primary school structure, when you get to high school, you're not really going to compete that much or understand. So when you understand a few of these things, by the time you get to high school, then you kind of see that, okay, I'm already at an advantage. I know this and that and that. I think I can do that. So that's why, like a lot of them Zimbabwean kids, you see them, they're very competitive. They will try to do this and that and that and that, because the education from primary school taught them, you can do this, you can do that, you can do that, you can do that. It did not really limit them on how much they could create. Out of school or break hustles. That was very important. In my family, we had farming. That's most of Zimbabwean households. If you even on weekends, you go farming. We all had land to farm. So you go farm, so when you harvest. So that was beautiful. We would farm every year, we ate what we grow. So that's why sometimes I've got that real African. I'm gonna go get it. I gotta get it, because my grandmother was a very big believer in, self-sustainability, which is most of what comes with Zimbabwean education. So don't wait for anyone to do anything for you. You go out there and you do something for yourself. Family rules and structures, order, chores. Rules were important at the house. Rules of how you live within the home, rules of how you live within the surrounding, your neighbors, rules of how just you engage with everything. So those were passed on to us via grandma. I was mostly raised in a household whereby there was an issue with the father. Look, my father is, I got two pups, let me just call it like that. So they couldn't claim me in a sense, so it was very tough. But I know both of them. One is deceased. May his soul rest in peace. One is alive. So it's like rich dad, poor dad type situation with me. So growing up in the house, I mean, I had my grandma and my mother, my sisters, So it was very important, of course, my brother. It was very important to understand the structures. That's your sister, you have to have respect. That's your mother, you have to have respect. The chores that you had to do as a boy in the house, all the things, they were very important. You had to be of familiness and understand that. Finding any sort of work to make some sort of pocket money. Since we went to school after the age of 3 or 4, once you start to understand, every Zimbabwean kid will find a hustle, I would help these guys who had trucks. Sometimes they need people to put bags of maize or whatever that people need to transport. So when I'm not at school, sometimes I'll go there, volunteer, carry a couple of bags, earn myself some pocket money for sweets. That was quite good. Cleaning yards, we used to help that, helping the elderly. We used to play a lot of card games, darts, we created a lot of things, like wire cards. Zimbabwe sold a lot of electronics. I was actually saying the other day, things that make things do things. So like little chipsets, little motors, so you could build your little wire car and make it move, stuff like that. So the knowledge, it was very much there. We had also some electrical classes, which were also taught, whereby the mind does get to understand a few things, fixing cars, making cars with anything, whatever you could see, people would do that. We got handcrafts, the wireworks, the stones, society matters, consciousness and upliftment. So then it was very important for communities to uplift one another. If I see the kid doing wrong there, definitely you just talk to that kid like you're talking to your own kid. So the community was very hands-on in on building community, the people. So people, I mean, you see a lot of Zimbabweans who build things with stones, like the craftsmen, they do a lot of things, different type of artists we got. So the mind, what it sees, they do. So that is just the education structure. It was not more to, I'm going to teach you this, teach you this, teach you this. I promise you, if you ask really, people know me. I was good in class, but it's just like, the education for me was just like, I found it a bit tiring sometimes. Like, I just needed to get to the hustle. At some point, we also had drought. The drought days, school. The school had to give us, porridge. We used to call it Kenya porridge. The time that porridge, it could save your life. So school played a major role in kids' lives, understanding, okay, they were dealing with a lot of kids who didn't have. So it was very important to make sure that the kids come to school at all times because it was mandated. So during drought days, then they will give you food, whatever they could give, all raised under the same principles, beliefs, structures of familyhood. So all Zimbabweans were raised almost under the same. I can't really speak when people are raised in suburbs and stuff, but one thing I know is when we met at school, we all behaved. Every Zimbabwean behaves in a certain way that is Zimbabwean. This whole celebrity thing, I think it's only starting from now, as people are coping and stuff like that. But that was not really in all of us. And then you understand that the street education combined with school, and all hustles, Kids from the ghetto stayed hustling. We stayed hustling. Once you understood, we kept on hustling. So Zimbabweans, I mean, from my generation, there's two classes. There's the class that hustles a lot and make dreams come true, and then the one that does not. Because there was also a few minority which were called salads. So the salads are the ones who grew up in suburbs. The parents maybe were managers, or let's say they had a good salary. They were in gated communities. So everything was safe. So they did not have, or they did not accumulate or acquire that street knowledge that helps you actually understand what's going on out there. Most of them spend times with girls because, I mean, they were favorites. Girls liked them because some of them were considered light-skinned. It's actually a thing out here. Light-skinned. Some of them, just those gated communities were good for these girls, man. So it was just like two classes of people. You all taught the same education, but how you pushed it out there in the world was very different based on what was pulling you back or what it is that you were attached to. So as you find now that we've got a bunch of Zimbabweans who are in trouble, and some Zimbabweans who are okay, in this trouble, what separates the two is that education principle and how it is that you grew up, But we were all given the same structures from just after the 80's, right? Same structure, same growth, same principles, go. Whereby a lot of people had to choose what it is they had to choose. Some of them didn't, some of them, their parents and stuff chose it for them. But our parents, like my mother, my father, they were definitely not given the education. Like we were given the education. No, some of them were still like running between this and this. They could get education. The conditions were still strict, but they could get education. But it was not that easy because, I mean, before 1980, it was still, war. So at the end of the day, here we are now. Our generation is here. So, and also if you look at our mothers and our fathers, the time they had to educate it, that's the times that we were being born, like I was born in 1986. So it was chop, 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 chop is like Harry, African lingo, to get things done. So at the end of the day, the people must never ever look at our mothers and our fathers as a burden for us Africans, because they had to deal with a lot, but we were the promised factor that, when we get here, when things start to get good, then we can start to look at a whole breed, hence why, many times Zimbabweans who work for the family, it's more family structure stuff, because that is the goal. So as an African nation, we're a family, so we work for ourselves. So if we carry those fundamentals of whatever it is that we're learning it for ourselves. It's very important. We compete. That competition is very important because that is how we keep building Africa, how we keep building our morale, and what it is that we say we know and what it is that we say we don't know. So on that note, Zimbabwean education, just after colonization, it was deep. It was necessary. It was not just theory, it was more hands-on. For these kids to understand, they all had to go to school, beautiful stuff, man. So on that note, at Ron, I hope this little touch up on just the basics of how some of these kids would have became whatever it is that they became. On that note, love and live your Africa. Be great, always be great. Education matters, but what matters the most is how we implement it, how we teach it, and for what reason do we teach it? Really, do we really want them to be great? Or they have to stay workers?